Hello and welcome to the M.B.Om podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. M.B.Om is a proud part of the Wander Barn podcast network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at M.B.Om, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hey friends, I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about M.B.Om behind the scenes. When I entered the yoga world as a teacher, I was surprised by how many yoga teachers were struggling with the business side of yoga. And that's why I created M.B.Om. M.B.Om helps yoga teachers and studio owners become entrepreneurs. It helps you to go from surviving to thriving with your yoga business. I am on a mission to change the yoga industry, to teach yoga teachers and studio owners about the business of yoga, and to help you feel more confident, successful, and abundant. After releasing hundreds of podcast episodes, I want to create content that dives deeper into helping yoga entrepreneurs thrive and elevate their businesses. This is where M.B.Om Behind the Scenes comes in. Each week, you will get bonus content from the weekly guest or myself, diving deeper into how you can take the teachings and apply them to your business. This podcast is designed for yoga teachers and studio owners who are ready to take it to the next level. If you enjoy M.B.Om and have been looking for an affordable way to learn more, this is it. For the cost of 2 lattes per month, you will get never-before-heard content that you can't access anywhere else that will give you tangible ways to dive deeper into your yoga business. If this sounds like something you're interested in, let's dive in. Head on over to patreon.com/MBM yoga and sign up to get behind the scenes now. Once again, that's patreon.com/MBOM yoga to get all the exclusive behind the scenes content. I'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the M.B.Om podcast. I'm very excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by OfferingTree, an all-in-one, easy-to-use online business platform that I've been working with for years. If you're looking to save time, energy, and money, check out OfferingTree. Don't forget to grab your special discount at offeringtree.com/MBOM. And stay tuned to hear a little bit more about OfferingTree a little bit later on in this episode. Now, today on the podcast, I am thrilled to be joined by Matt Barnett. Matt is the CEO of Bonjoro, which is a platform that helps you create short and simple videos to convert more leads and support your customers. And in this episode of the show, Matt and I discuss the importance of customer service, how sending your new leads short welcome videos or something of that sort can turn them into paying customers, and how making a bit of effort to engage your customers can go a long way to creating long-term relationships, especially in this online world. And this is not only super valuable for yoga studio owners, but also yoga teachers running their own independent businesses. In this crazy world where we're not interacting with people in person, it's more important than ever to actually be creating spaces online where people feel like they're seen and heard and welcomed. And the bar for customer service in the online world is pretty low. So Matt shares some tips and tricks for how we can actually be creating a really great customer service experience for our yoga students who are coming to our classes. So I hope that you enjoy this episode of the show, that you learn as much as I did. And without further ado, here is Matt. Welcome to the podcast today, Matt. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Thanks for having me along.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you tell listeners where you're joining us from today?
I'm calling in from Sydney, Australia. It's about 5:30 in the morning on this side of the world.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for joining me so early in the morning. It's about 2 p.m. my time, and I think you're a day ahead of me. So I hope that your future day is going well.
It's Friday. It's going to be good. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, Friday is the best day. And I'm really appreciative of your time today and everything we're going to talk about. I want to just start by you introducing yourself a little bit, telling myself and listeners about, who you are, what you do, and then we can dive into your journey with Bonjoro.
Sure. My name's Matt. I'm the Papa Bear or CEO at a company called Bonjoro, based out of Australia. I'm actually British originally. I moved here many years ago to go surfing every day. And I wouldn't say I quite do that anymore, having a child in a business, but still get in the water whenever I can and get outdoors. Bonjoro is a one-to-one personalized video messaging platform. So it was a little hack that we originally built. And what we found is that sending 30-second videos to leads or to customers at key points in their journey that are personalized for them. So saying, hey, Sally, saw you signed up. Amazing to have you on board, that kind of thing. We found that just taking that time with the customer really has a huge impact in terms of engagement and then ultimately conversions and getting those customers to stay around and love you and your business.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to dive into how that can help yoga teachers and yoga studio owners and that type of thing. But I'd love to hear a little bit about like the process of creating your business and kind of where the idea came from and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we ran a bit of an agency here. Like, we were always fascinated by kind of the tech kind of side of things and products. I'm a product guy originally, and we ended up falling into a bit of like an agency where we had some products and we would sell to larger companies. And yeah, Australia is a wonderful place to live to live for lifestyle. I would highly recommend it. But in terms of dealing with global companies, it's a little bit more difficult because as today at 5:30 in the morning, time zones are not your best friend. So we would have inquiries from London, New York, Paris, and we'd generally be asleep when those came in. So in terms of the sales side, we're very personable. We love people. We like like who we are. It's a big part of how we sell. And sending out emails just wasn't getting that across. So I take a ferry to work in the city, which happens to go past the Opera House, which is a pretty iconic place in Sydney. And I started recording an individual video for every single inquiry we ever had every single night. And I'd try and time this as I went past the Opera House, and I'd personalize this and say, hey, John, saw you sign up from Ogilvy in London. Obviously, I'm not over there. I'm here in Australia. There's the Opera House. It's a beautiful morning. It's 6 a.m. Look, we've worked with X, Y, and Z. I see you're the account manager of Budweiser. We've worked with Heineken. If you would like to have a chat about what we do, let's hop on a call, or I'll be in London in 2 weeks' time. Let's catch up in person. And that was basically it. And then we take that video, we'd package it up and we email it out to them. And so the first piece of comms they would ever get from one of my team, and we all did this, was one of us on video. It was the first thing they ever heard from us. And the response was kind of off the chain. So yeah, we tripled our response rates overnight. As a result, we tripled the amount of meetings we had, we tripled the amount of business. And what was happening is, people were getting back. And with me especially, most time their response was, I can't really understand what you're saying because it's too windy and you're half asleep, but this is hilarious. You should come in and see us. And so people just loved the fact that we took the time. And a long story short, a customer somewhere turned around and said, hey, this video email thing, could we use it for our inbound leads? And we were like, yep, sure. We built something they could go onto, and then one of their customers asked if they could use it, and it just kind of escalated and took the original business in about 18 months. So it seems the idea of getting the personal approach across, taking 30 seconds with the lead, making a bit more effort to make your best first impression, didn't just pertain to us and what we were doing, but it's kind of worked across the board into all industries, especially in things like education and relationship-based industries where, again, like you are key to the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing about that and kind of how it was like a natural evolution to build this. And I think that one thing that really resonates with me about kind of what you do and kind of how this was built is this idea that, of course, we're always looking to create automations in our business and automate processes and make things easier. And that goes for all businesses, whether you're a solopreneur, independent yoga teacher, or a studio owner managing, a bunch of studios. And but remembering with this automation that we're also in the business of relationships. Can you touch a little bit on this aspect of like adding in more of this human element back to a business, especially in this world where we're all online right now? Everything's so much about automate. How can we have this really personal element in it?
Yeah, so we have a bit of an ethos, which I obviously love, which is automate processes but never relationships. And so I think what we found is that automation is amazing. Like, we're a tech company, we use it a hell of a lot. But what it exists for is to do the stuff that you don't need to do as a human, so that you can focus on the stuff that only you can do as a human, which ultimately is building relationships with clients. I think if we look at kind of like the landscape today, we're all online. I mean, me and you now, other sides of the world, relationships have kind of gone beyond the in person. They've hopped online. I think in that rush, we chase scale and automation as much as possible, and we kind of maybe lost the human touch a little bit. I think there's two areas where relationships really, really matter. One is industries where there is a human at the heart of it. So things obviously like yoga, fitness, education, other service industries. Relationships are key to these. Like you keep getting along for the quality of the education and because you love the community and because you love the educator. So if you're going to work with someone in that manner, you want to get that across straight away. The other place that actually is really interesting as well is industries where relationships have not traditionally been at the heart of it. And you see this in things like e-commerce, maybe online education rather than in person. You see it in my industry in software, where traditionally everyone was all about automation of funnels. And then suddenly, if you have two choices of two companies to work with, and one of them takes the effort to say hello and welcome in person, and one doesn't, then it's pretty clear the company that you go with. People love, like, we are social creatures. Like we crave relationships. It's how we're built. It's how we evolved. That will never change. And I think businesses are being held a little bit more accountable to that nowadays. That with so much choice in the market, you're going to have 3, 4, 5 yoga studios in your immediate vicinity, especially if you're in Australia. Who do you go with, and why do you go with them? Assuming that the education and the quality is equal across them.
And the price too. I mean, so many yoga studios compete on price these days. And it's like, if you're looking at, and they're all in the same sort of walking or driving distance of you in your vicinity, you're going to look at, the schedule, the pricing. If that stuff's relatively the same, then you're going to choose one, maybe do a couple intro trials depending on what their deals are, and then pick from there. And I can certainly see both from the studio side of things, like on the back end, working with studios, and then also as a customer, how, getting a little personalized video would mean a lot to me, because I feel like I've been to so many yoga studios around the world and I practiced in so many classes. And there's something about somebody taking, just a couple of seconds to say your name and ask you a question about yourself, as opposed to just treating you like you're just another transaction coming through the door.
Yeah, I think for me, the best companies in the world are the ones that manage to keep that perception going, no matter how big they get. Like some, like it's very rare it gets pulled off in larger companies, but I think just like as you scale, you see, like I think early startup companies, like early people getting going, setting up their first studios, are generally better at this anyway, because the one thing you have in the beginning is you actually have the time to give, and then again, as you get larger and you look down this kind of scale funnel and you start to get bigger and bigger, like a lot of companies lose that touch and lose that thing that made them famous in the first place. So I think you really need to have a hard look and say, are we doing enough to bond and care for not even customers, but like people who are coming in for the first time, people who aren't customers yet, especially. And then the other side is people who've been with you for a year or 2 years. Like, are you going above and beyond for them still? Because they can always go somewhere else. I mean, I'm not the most addicted to yoga. I'm definitely more of a surf kind of guy, but I still traipse across the city for my favorite barista, which is, I know it's not quite the same, but this barista has moved coffee shops like 5 times. Like Australia's a big coffee country, and whenever they move, because they're so good and because I've known them for years, like I will go that extra 10 minutes of transport in the morning to go and see them and get my coffee. And it's not the coffee, what I mean? It's the relationship that does it for me.
Yeah, I love how serious coffee's taken in Australia. I have a lot of Australian friends and they're always like, coffee in Canada is so bad. I'm like, it's fine. Don't be so precious. But I've also been to Australia, so I know you guys do coffee really well down there. So I totally get it. And I can relate to that. I mean, across a ton of different industries, like I think hairdressing is another one. Like once you find a good hairdresser who knows how to cut your hair, like you're going to move with that person, because it's not about the company necessarily. It's about that person. And same with your favorite barista, your favorite yoga teacher. And I was thinking too, I work with a yoga studio in a small town in Canada, and it's one of 3 studios in town. And so, when you're looking at the 3 studios, they're quite different, and there's probably an obvious choice for somebody. But I think one of the things that the studio I work with does really well is this community aspect. And that's been something that we've been trying to figure out, like, how do we replicate online, and how do we, convey that same level of personalization when we can't be in person with people right now. And I feel like as I think about Bonjoro and the video aspect, it just makes sense that adding something like this into our process would be something that would be worth the time and energy.
Yeah, like, I think by doing something like this, you instantly signal. I mean, here's the thing. Like I look at us and I go, like, we're not really a video company. We're actually, we're an engagement tool, we're a personalization tool. We happen to use video because it's a great medium for getting across emotion and facial expression and all the things that come with communication. That is incredibly powerful. But I think it also just signals the fact that you're willing to do this. The fact that you're giving 30 seconds to a inquiry seems like nothing. It really doesn't. But most people don't do this. And so when you do that, you're stepping up and saying, hey, you matter from the very get-go. We're here for you and we care, and we're a different type of company, or a different type of studio. So again, like, where this works is, with those 3 yoga studios, if whenever you inquire, you get an automated email from 2 of them, and then another one, it has someone in the kitchen saying, hey, I'm Jenny, I'm going to be one of the instructors. Like, I can't get back to you right now. I'm just in the kitchen with my kids, but I'll be around later. Come and join us for a demo class. And again, like, that's just transparency. It's super genuine. It gets across who you're going to be with. And we found that, more often than not, that's going to drive people to come to you rather than someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I've received a couple of different videos just with podcast guests and such like that. And one person actually sent me, hey, I'm a podcast host myself. I get a lot of generic pitches. I'm not into that. So I made you a video instead. And I clicked on the video. It was just a couple of minutes. I mean, it was a pitch, so it was longer than maybe just a hello video. But it was so nice to just watch that and have context for who this is and what they want to talk about and what they can offer. And I feel like there's something just really nice about being able to see somebody's face and hear their voice that just reads different than when you're just reading an email, putting your own interpretation on the thing that they're saying and that type of thing. And same, I had another person who pitched me the same way. We'd already talked about her coming on my show, and then she sent me her different ideas via video, which was so fun to read. And then somebody else actually used, it might have even been Bonjoro, her assistant had booked it through me, and she sent through hey, I just wanted to introduce myself beforehand and say hello. And it was just this quick little video, and those things go a long way. It's kind of interesting, but it's just something that I feel works. It just makes you feel more connected to that person and more excited about building a relationship with them.
Yeah, I think it triggers a deep subconscious need to connect with people again. So I don't think it's all so obvious. I think doing it triggers endorphins within you that someone's taken the time and that they're there. It makes you like people. And with us. I read a piece a while ago, and again, this isn't the same industry, but we looked at all of our suppliers, and we must have 80 or 5 different softwares and things that we use. And out of those, there's 5 where I know the people and care about them. You talk about baristas moving, it's interesting, but I'm if some of those people we work with move to other companies, we will probably, if they hit us up, we probably have a serious look at where they've gone to, and do we need to switch to that provider instead? It matters, but it's amazing. It's amazing how few of the interactions we have with companies and educators and everything else actually take the time to do this. So, I mean, one thing I'll say here is that I actually think the bar is pretty low. So I think trying to just get a little bit above that, it's not that competitive, yeah, and it's kind of an easy win, really.
Hey everyone, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about OfferingTree. I wanted to remind you about the special discount you can get with OfferingTree. I love telling yoga teachers about OfferingTree because not only is it your one-stop shop for all things that you need in your yoga business, but it is also easy to use, it's affordable, and it's truly an amazing company to work with. OfferingTree lets you sell courses, run classes, manage memberships, and so much more with just one account. That's right, just one login for all those parts of your business. One of the best parts about OfferingTree is their online store. You can sell digital content like yoga videos, challenges, and courses right from your website. If you're teaching yoga classes and looking to level up, selling digital content is the next step to growing your business. Over the last year, we've seen so much pivot and change happen in the yoga industry, and having your own unique yoga business where you offer your students different course material can be so beneficial in creating a sustainable business with diversified income. And while there's many different platforms that you can create courses on these days, OfferingTree's course tools are easy to use and they're really affordable. And if you have a website you already like, you can still use OfferingTree. But there's one other thing I want to tell you about OfferingTree that makes all the difference in the world to me and probably to you too. They're a company that truly cares about yoga teachers and the wellness industry overall. I chose to partner with OfferingTree because I love the product and I love the people. Whenever yoga teachers have a suggestion for something that they need out of the platform, they can reach out directly to the people at OfferingTree and they're actually heard. So much of the development that OfferingTree has gone through over the last year has been because of yoga teachers like yourself. So if you're looking to save time, energy, and money in your yoga business, OfferingTree is hands down the software for you. Go to offeringtree.com/M.B.Om to learn more and get your discount. Okay, let's get back to the episode. I'd love to dive into a little bit around like how yoga teachers and studio owners specifically could be using this in their businesses, because I agree, like you said, I think the bar is low. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people out there who are like, I'm already doing so much, like I don't really have capacity for anything else. And I think that this, like we talked about in the beginning, is one of those things where automate other processes and really focus on building your relationships, and that's going to show up in your business. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how yoga teachers and studio owners could be using this type of video software, using personalized video emails to connect with their students.
Yeah, so what I'll say is when you look at something like this, it's not something you have to go all in at. You can test it out with minimal time and very quickly see if it's something that might work for you. Now, if it works, obviously, then you'll understand, and then there's a potential to go ahead and use it. So you don't have to invest a lot just to test it. I think that where it's easiest to get started with something like this is definitely with new inquiries. The way we built the system is that it sits on top of if you're using any kind of lead page form or any contact form or any CRM, any customer data source or email provider, we'll actually plug into that so that when somebody does get in touch, we'll actually notify you or a team member, desktop, mobile, so wherever you are, that you'll get a notification saying, hey, look, Jenny Saunders just got in touch. If there's information about Jenny, such as she's filled out some data on a sign-up form, we'll drag that in as well. So what you can do is at a very quick glance, see who Jenny is. And so when you do a quick 30-second recording, you press record and go, you can personalize that message to her needs and what it is she's after. Obviously, it allows you to respond pretty quickly as well, but it's really a 20-second message and then it's back to work. And so it's not a huge ask, but in terms of leads, look, getting back within a couple of hours does have a huge impact. Again, it just shows that you're willing and you're there, and you obviously take things seriously. I think leads are easy because it's quite binary. You can look at that and go, are we converting more leads? Are we getting more people to turn up? Are we starting more conversations? That's a great place to start. It's very easy to test if it's something that might work for you as a communication tool. And again, it's not a huge time suck because the way it builds into your systems. Once you've played around with that and started to get that working, I think other places we see it used in the industry. So one area is actually what I call lapsed customers. So somebody who hasn't been along in the last 4 weeks. And so obviously keep checking in with them on a personal level and saying, hey, Paul, I saw you haven't been along to classes the last 4 weeks. is something up like do you need help? Do you want to come back in a couple months or something like whatever that needs to be? Just using it as a re-engagement tool. People who haven't been along, because to be frankly honest, it's a lot harder to not respond to an email. So it's a lot harder to not respond to a video than it is to not respond to an email. So we find generally with re-engagement, and this is yoga and anything around fitness, we use quite heavily as well as a re-engagement tool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of it working with your other softwares to tell you when somebody engages with, your I don't know, your email lead magnet or just like fills out a form for your studio. Do you guys work specifically with do you work more with like Salesforce and HubSpot and those types of softwares, or do you integrate with like pretty much any sort of customer or like CRM software?
We integrate. So we have a bunch of direct integrations with things like HubSpot and ActiveCampaign and all those. We have a pretty robust Zapier integration as well, which connects us to about 3,000 more. So pretty much 99% of software will connect into in that way. So whatever you use, generally we do connect. And if we don't connect to it, then hit us up.
Gotcha. That definitely makes sense. And so you can use it for this, like somebody engages with you, send them like a quick little welcome video or pulling like data on people who haven't been recently and then being able to send those people videos. I'm thinking that this would work well for both yoga teachers and yoga studio owners, maybe a little bit better with studio owners just because they're generally bigger and have more customers coming through the door. But that's definitely been like with the studios I work with. We've been looking a lot at like lapse members and stuff, especially because we're all online now. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who have moved away or maybe couldn't practice with us because they weren't in the area to practice with us because now everything is all online. So they can literally practice with us anywhere, anytime, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the system side of it is incredibly important. Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Like you don't like you shouldn't be actually like deciding even when to do these. The idea is it's what we call triggers. So yes, a trigger can be an inquiry comes in. It can be somebody hasn't been in 4 weeks, and the system automatically triggers and says, "Hey, Johnny hasn't been in 4 weeks to this video." It could be that someone's been with you for a year, or it's the birthday. Again, whatever the triggers need to be, because there's also like a piece around retention here, which is just looking after customers and going above and beyond over time. It just think like what I did see the last 12 months with people going kind of remote a lot more is I saw a lot more use cases where instructors were actually dropping in like 1 minute catch up videos with clients on a weekly basis. And so this isn't two-way. So because these are obviously one-way videos, like if you're doing a minute video, it's only a minute every time. But they're actually using this to kind of send little personal checkups and little routines, especially kind of a lot like around the fitness industry, to clients while they were remote, and then driving them to hop onto online assets they kind of created, online videos, and kind of like driving engagement on those. I thought that was really interesting. I'll be interested to see what happens, over the next 12 months, whether this like continues even as things open up in terms of I guess people getting together. Like it's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a different approach. It's definitely a more hands-on, taking a little bit of time with each and every member. But again, it's not, if you're like a studio owner, it's not necessarily you. It could be any of your instructors doing this, or sharing the load between them.
Right. Yeah. Your instructors, your management team. I think it's a really cool idea just for people to be able to have that like face to face connection, or like you said, send a little message about, maybe something you're working on with a client, or, maybe it's a little message before they book their next private session with you or something like that. It seems like there's a lot of potential to get creative with it. But just the whole idea is having that connection with somebody in a way that so often we depend on our systems and our booking calendars to send like reminders and whatnot, which is amazing. Obviously, that's super great that we have that because it saves so much time. But then being able to kind of go from there to look at like, okay, what's important for me to engage with, and spending the time to engage with your people.
I think this hasn't changed for the last 100, 200 years. Like you go back to our, kind of our parents' generation, or even us, depending how old you are. Like you used to have relationships with, your grocer that you would go into. You'd have all these personal relationships where you'd walk in, they know what you wanted, and they kind of serve it up. And obviously, as we've gone online, the automation stuff is awesome, as you said, but being amazing at front of house, so being amazing at customer touch points at all stages of the customer journey, not just when you're with them, is always going to help you compete. And I can tell you right now that most businesses will do a bad job of this, like ad infinitum, like they will. And you'll always be able to compete if you care, if you truly care about customers and you want to put time in. Again, the trick here is working out the processes and the tools you use to make that quite systematic, to operationalize it if you like, and to make it, a low time cost for you. But if you have the intention to go into this, if that's who you are and who your brand is and what your studio is like, and you can deliver on that, like awesome front of house, awesome support, awesome connection, will always be a way to compete. Like it will never go away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting that you bring that up because I'm down in Mexico and I live in a city called Merida in the Yucatan. And we have a really good friend. My husband and I have a really good friend who lives here. And, arriving there, I'm like, oh, do you have like my husband needs a haircut. Do you know of a barber? He's like, yeah, I know a guy. I'm like, oh, do you know a place where I could get like whole roasted chickens? He's like, yeah, I know a place. And he's got like all these connections. And it's like kind of through word of mouth that we've kind of made this network and discovered these really great things about this new city. And it kind of makes me think that it's sort of the same thing. It's just doing it on kind of a different scale. It's like, somebody comes into your network, they're interested about what you offer, your yoga classes or whatnot. Sending something like a video is something that's going to like help them make that decision. And then you can continue nurturing them in other ways throughout that relationship. And that's when you become like the go-to studio for somebody who's like new in town or visiting, is when you've created that relationship over time. And I think that you're totally right. Like if we look through history, yes, we live in this era where your groceries can be picked up out of I don't know, like an Amazon box at Whole Foods, or like your packages come, from a helicopter that delivers things to your door, essentially, or like a mini drone. But it's like so many people want that like human connection more than ever. And they're willing to, walk to the grocery store or, pay the extra money to not order from the online business. So I think it is a really important thing to remember.
But it's again like just do that little bit better. It's not like
It's not
that's
rocket
all.
science.
Rocket science, yeah. Like just do that little bit better. Like a video is an amazing tool for this. There are multitudes of other tools and other suites out there, and obviously video is just one communication method. Look, I think just across, one exercise I find is really good from a tactics point of view is to get a piece of paper and just write out your traditional customer journey. So what I mean here is, what happens the first time they contact you? Like how many contacts do you have or whatever until they come in for the first, trial? Like what does that look like? How long does it take them to then become a regular customer? How often are they coming in? And how often are you talking to them or communicating with them outside of them coming into the studio? And how long do they stay with you? Are they with you for 6 months? Or are they with you for 5 years? Map that out on a piece of paper, look at all the touch points and just look at each one of those and go, could we do a better job at each of those points? And just start with one of them. So just start at the top and go, okay, first time we ever talk to them, they ever contact us, can we do a better job? Try a few things to see if you can get better engagement rates, get a better response rate, lift that up and the whole funnel changes. Then when that's good, go to the next spot and say, look, could we do a better job here? And some of them, obviously, you'll be doing a fantastic job and you don't need to change. But if you map it out and look at them, I guarantee you'll find shortfalls. And you'll also see points where there isn't a communication point and where there should be. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, there's like 7 months here where we don't really talk to anyone. Maybe we should do something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that piece of advice to map out the customer journey, how they're interacting with you, what process they go through. And I think even looking at like, I'm just thinking about my own business and a lot of the yoga teachers I know, like, somebody buys a package with you or they do some sessions with you and then they finish that and you kind of just like never talk to them again. And I think this is where we're talking about those lapsed customers, like looking at that part of it too. Like if you had somebody that you were working with and then you just don't hear from them again, like, is there a way for you to reconnect with them using this type of human connection and perhaps personalized video emails? Because I think that, I mean, you're probably the same way. Like sometimes I'll just get an email from somebody I haven't heard from in ages or a company I haven't thought of. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I wonder what they're up to. And I feel like if somebody sent me a video that's like, hey, like you came to spin like a year ago with me and it seemed like you really liked the class. I haven't seen you again. Like, what have you been up to? Would you like to come back to another class? I feel like I'd be like, oh, cool. I should go back,
It's all like I see in my industry and kind of where we are with partners and things, and honestly, like I drop the ball, like this happens all the time. Like having conversations and there's so much energy, and then you just both get busy, and there's nothing nefarious about this. It's just that things drop off the radar. So again, the people and the teams that have the systems in place to kind of pick up on those, like you said, they hit you up and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I meant to do that, or I meant to get back on that. Again, it's not that somebody didn't like what you did and has gone away. It's often, probably more often than not, life has got in the way, or they've just got busy and forgotten with 100 other things. So if you could be the voice that keeps popping in and being like, hey, remember how much you want to do this? Eventually they'll be like, okay, like I need to make this happen, and then it will happen. It's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. There's always a million things to balance, but I really love all the pieces of advice that you've given today. Matt, is there anything else you want to share kind of about this conversation of automate processes, not relationships, before we wrap up?
I mean, that's it. If that's the one thing you take away, take away that. Just think about that when you're doing your automation, when you're doing communication. Just think, look, at some points to build a relationship, you can't do that in a fully robotic manner. There needs to be you need to spend some time on a customer. Honestly, if a new lead or a new inquiry or a new customer is not worth a few minutes of your time or one of your staff's time, then you probably don't deserve that customer, to be brutally honest. So look at it, do a better job, invest in front of house, really go above and beyond, and I guarantee you, even if it takes time and expense, it will pay off, hands down.
Amazing. I love that. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Can you share with listeners where they can go find out more about you, maybe check out Bonjoro and all that good stuff?
Sure. If you want to find out more about me, then go to LinkedIn and search for Papa Bear. I think there's 3 of us on there, and I'm the guy in the bear suit. So feel free to reach out. If you want any advice, any thought beyond video, I'm always here to help. If you want to check out the video thing, go to Bonjoro, check it out, bonjoro.com. It's completely free to hop on board, test it, see if it works for your company. If you want to talk to one of the team, do. When you sign up, you will get a welcome video from somebody somewhere in the world on my team. It might be me, it might be one of our team in the UK or the States. So feel free to respond to that person, have a little chat to them and see how they can help you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Matt. This has been really great.
Thanks for having me along.
All right. I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Matt Barnett. If you are interested in Bonjoro, make sure you go check them out. Matt and I continued this conversation behind the scenes on M.B.Om Behind the Scenes, which is the exclusive and private podcast feed that is weekly podcast episodes over on Patreon at patreon.com/M.B.Om Yoga. And we talked all about finding balance in your business. Matt is a CEO and entrepreneur. He's also a father. He also has a lot of different passions and things that he enjoys doing. So I wanted to pick his brain on how he manages it all. And he gave some fabulous tips. So once again, head on over to patreon.com/M.B.Om Yoga to get access to that. And thanks again to our sponsor, OfferingTree. To start spending more time with students and less time with software, head on over to offeringtree.com/M.B.Om to get an exclusive discount. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the show, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.